Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast presented by our friends over at DraftKings. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. Regular season in the books. The playoffs are upon us. We got 3 days of glorious playoff football this weekend with the wild card round. So as usual, we will, of course, break down each of those games in detail. Today's show is going to be a little different, though. We're going to lead things off talking a little bit of coaching carousel. We're also going to give you some good strategy tips, some plays, some fades, some general strategy stuff to bear in mind for your playoff best ball, specifically over on DraftKings. So we're gonna get things rolling here, Mario. Just before we stepped on, one Mike McDaniel was fired by the Miami Dolphins. A bit of a surprise, perhaps, given, I think in a lot of cases, Sunday night, Monday was sort of like the sweet spot for a lot of these teams to make their coach firings. Obviously, Baltimore fired John Harbaugh on Tuesday, but it felt like there was a chance. I think that there was some reporting out there that McDaniel was sitting in on some of these GM search meetings for Miami as they look to kind of reset the front office, but they will also, by extension, be having a new man leading the sidelines there. So your reaction there when it comes to Miami parting ways with McDaniel?
I wouldn't have fired him, but I guess I don't find it shocking that he was fired. I guess coaches have been fired for less, you could argue. I personally think McDaniel has a really good set of excuses for the various things that went wrong in Miami. But if, as the owner, Stephen Ross was sort of watching, especially like the Harbaugh firing, and sort of just thinking, maybe I didn't realize that there's certain options available that, because I said that previously, the reports were that McDaniel was safe. And I assume that came from up top. The leak was more or less from up top in the Miami organization, and something changed. It might have just been the Harbaugh firing. So I don't know if like Miami decided like actually we got to go get Harbaugh or any other thing that might have come up upon dwelling on that subject a little longer. Sorry there.
We might be having a little bit of a connectivity
issue.
Yeah,
you take this, John. My screen's just started. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
My screen's just started. My computer just acted like it was turning off or something, and I see my camera doesn't work. That's cool.
Well, we will wait for Mario to get back. In the meantime, you're stuck with me. But I think that all told, what Mario was saying is something I agree with. Where McDaniel, I think he's a good coach. I think he's a little bit goofy at times, and that plays well, and it's about as much fun as you can have as a fan, like in 2022 and 2023 with the way that the Dolphins were cooking. But last year, and of course this season, just didn't really bear out the way that Miami was expecting. I honestly feel like Miami, all things considered, the season could have gotten so far away from them the way that it started. So the fact that they were able to be somewhat respectable by year's end, I think was a testament to McDaniel. But I think you do bring up the good point there, where it's like they probably wanted a change, but they also might have felt like there wasn't an obvious upgrade to McDaniel. But now with Harbaugh being available, I think that might have changed the thought process there from the Miami brass.
Yeah, I agree. I'm basically a Mike McDaniel sympathizer, but I thought he did a clearly very good job this year, and the whole time in Miami. Basically, the team was bad for reasons that related to the decisions of the GM, and in a way, it's like the Dolphins are holding it against McDaniel that he ever tricked anybody into thinking Tua was good, as if he owes them more than that. Like, it was a miracle that they got the level of quality play that they got out of Tua. Actually, to say the play was crap, but so therefore I see Mike McDaniel as a really good head coaching hire for any other team that needs one, especially if you're like how do we make our quarterback look better? Like, there's arguably no one in the NFL who has shown they can make a quarterback look better than they are than Mike McDaniel.
I mean, the results definitely bear that out, especially relative to what we kind of know of Tua at this stage. So I just wonder if what McDaniel's next step is. Would he go with the ego check and accept being an offensive coordinator for a year or two
He
somewhere?
might.
Or I think he might have to, but I think it
He
will
is a
behoove him in
gamer.
the long run. Say
If
again.
he if he's a gamer, and if he's an offensive coordinator instead of a head coach, he has more time to game, more time to do scheming, on chalkboards and stuff. So to him, that's just kind of like going back into the lab or something, which obviously he likes being there.
Yeah, so I think it could help him in the long run, and if he doesn't really like some of these other options that are open right now, and that I don't mean to assume that all these teams are going to be calling him up the way that Harbaugh was getting called on Tuesday night, like right after
That was
the
silly.
announcement.
That's funny. Look at how stupid the league is. We're always wondering in the middle of every season, like, how did it get so bad? Why is everything so poorly run? And then, yeah, like half the league trips over themselves, like implicitly, like offering to fire their head coaches just to like get anywhere near John Harbaugh. John
Yeah,
Harbaugh. Oh my God, he's a legend. Best
it,
special teams coach of all time. I assume. I never paid attention to him, man.
I mean, yeah, I mean he was an interesting hire at the time that obviously had a great tenure. I mean, I guess we can flip the conversation at this point over to Harbaugh, and just to put a bow on the McDaniel stuff. He's going to be fine. Miami, as far as like job attractiveness relative to some of the other open spots, they have the big elephant in the room with the Tua contract and what they want to do with him moving forward. I think the defense has they've just kind of we're seeing the tail essentially of Miami. Basically, they push their chips in for 22 and 23, and we're seeing like what happens when you don't get to the mountaintop, and them obviously just sort of getting the brutal draw of having to go to Arrowhead during that great season where they were in position to get the 1 seed, and then petering out right away in wild card weekend. I think that was sort of like the beginning of the end of this Dolphins team, and here we are today, and yeah, there's a lot of cleaning up to do. Obviously, I think the new GM will be handpicking the head coach, and we'll have to see what Miami does as far as that is concerned. But big news Tuesday night, obviously, with Baltimore finally parting ways with John Harbaugh after a lengthy tenure, 18 years, I think it was from 2008 all the way through this season. My take, and I put this on Twitter, of course. I think it was time. I think that
Yeah,
he had
it
a
was
great.
time years ago.
I mean, arguably it was. I mean, I actually combed back through some of my tweets, and that like probably 2 or 3 weeks before he benched Flacco for Lamar Jackson, I was like, I'm done with this guy. Or it might have even been during the 2017 season. Like there were a couple dead years after the Super Bowl kind of window where Baltimore was this rudderless ship, and then Lamar Jackson kind of pulled them out of it. And Harbaugh made the call to move on from Flacco, and Lamar Jackson obviously takes the league by storm in his second year, and kind of like ushers in this second chapter of Harbaugh's tenure. And largely, I feel like it's been a failing of Lamar Jackson, whether it's been through the coordinator hires or the in-game decision making from Harbaugh, and really this era from 2019 through 2025 has been marked by coming up short, and getting tight in big games, losing in painful ways, like new and inventive, torturous ways. I mean, I thought Sunday night, I didn't think I would be mad about losing to the Steelers, or at least no more than usual. But losing in that fashion was crazy, and that to me was the final straw. They certainly could have done stuff on that final possession to put Loop in a better position, but obviously Loop, I feel like he just didn't have it, no matter where he was kicking that ball from. But that was a bit of a icing on the cake for what's been an abysmal season for Baltimore. You could see or you could kind of feel like the Mark Andrews play in the divisional round last year, followed by opening the season in Buffalo, going out and just bulldozing Buffalo for the first 3 quarters of the game and finding a way to lose. That was the Baltimore DNA under John Harbaugh for the final 5-6 years of his time there. I think there's a need for a new voice in the room. I think he, all told, he's like 12th all time in wins. You can't take anything away from that. Tons of AFC Championship appearances, a Super Bowl win. So all the respect for what he did, but it was absolutely time for Baltimore to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I suppose that might be harder on John Harbaugh than most, but I see him as a game manager coach. I don't think he can affect the game that much. I think his success in Baltimore was basically, excuse me, almost entirely owed to the stability of the Baltimore organization that he stepped into. I mean, that was Ozzie Newsome's team more than it was Harbaugh's team, and throughout Harbaugh's stretch as head coach until this year or last year, sorry, he had really, really good defensive coordinators. Some of the best defensive, even so the Wink Martindales, the Dean Peases, those guys are very good defensive coordinators. It might have been easy to take for granted, especially because we just got used for upwards of 25 years. The Ravens just have some guy like that as a defensive coordinator. You just assume they're supposed to be there, but they're not. A lot of teams would wish to have defensive coordinators that good, and those guys aren't as good as Rex Ryan even. He was a little bit earlier in the 2000s, but anyway, Zach Orr does not cut it relative to Mike McDaniel, of course, the other one. The Orr situation at defensive coordinator, I think, was a big problem. I don't doubt that the Baltimore personnel and defense was less than optimal. Going into the year particularly, we were like, there's not enough run defense depth. There's not enough defensive line depth.
Yeah, then you lose Matabike, and it's basically a wrap.
Yeah, so I'm not even saying Orr is worse than a game manager, defensive coordinator himself, and basically he might be forgiven for whatever he couldn't get accomplished there, but he was still a huge drop off from those other defensive coordinators, and in the secondary in particular, it's like, how do you keep giving up these big to the Steelers, especially? Like, how are you giving up big pass plays to a team that doesn't even deign to attempt to throw the ball? They didn't have DK Metcalf, and you're giving up plays downfield with these corners and these safeties. There's no excuse for that at all.
Well, it's complementary to the fact that they had no pass rush. I mean, they had to Draymond Jones was the best guy that they had this year, and they had to pick him up off the scrap heap in Tennessee. I mean, Kyle Van Noy just has cement in his shoes. He had the great year last year. He just got old over the offseason.
Yeah,
and Mike Green's obviously not ready yet. Okay,
I do blame DaCosta for a great deal of this. They had to take that rapist defensive end who turned out to suck anyway, and it's like you can't burn picks like this and you can't go into the year with Aeneas Peebles as your DL4 and then be like, whoa, why didn't that work? This is, and of course DaCosta, worse yet, his management of the receiver room in Baltimore. I have a great deal of contempt for the people in football media who try to argue that actually Lamar Jackson has had it probably easier than any quarterback ever. If you think about it, if you really plug in, your EPA cord into the jack in the back of your head, where you get all your EPA information transmitted into, and you think about it, you can see Lamar Jackson's had it easier than every quarterback ever. And it's like, wait a second,
that's crazy.
He won MVP at age 23 with Willie Snead as his wide receiver one. This was after the Saints got bored with him, by the way. So no, it wasn't even like they got Willie Snead from the Saints, it's gonna be great. And it wasn't an issue of misunderstanding. They were just like, yeah, let's have 8 games of Hollywood Brown, rookie year Hollywood Brown off the broken foot, and Willie Snead, and it's all our 23-year-old quarterback needs. He can run. He'll be fine. And he won MVP for them. But if they had instead of looking at Lamar Jackson and thinking of all the ways, gripping onto all the ways that, oh, he'll figure it out, oh, he'll be fine, he'll do that. And then if they instead had looked at Lamar Jackson the way most other teams do their quarterbacks, they're especially prized, heavily invested in quarterbacks, and they say, we got to make this guy productive. This is our most expensive player. It's this player who our team success is most closely tied to the results of. We have to empower him every way we can. And instead, the Ravens took the exact opposite approach. They said, "What about Rashad Bateman?" They said, "Here's Zay Flowers." I'm sorry, Zay Flowers is a good player, but he should not be your first and second receiver. He should be one of three good receivers you have in your sensibly constructed offense. And having Rashad Bateman doing clearing routes all day is not one such offense. That was ridiculous. It would have been so much easy. It would have been so easy to end up with a better group of pass catchers than they had for Lamar. And to produce the touchdown count that he has in his career with the pass catchers that he's had is completely absurd. And any coach who is the heir to that level of production from the quarterback and can't win multiple Super Bowls, in my opinion, is not good. And I know that people will say that, like, oh, well, Lamar choked. It's like, look at the Ravens roster overall. All parts of it failed in the offense, and Lamar Jackson, his job at that point is to just miraculously fix all of it, which almost no quarterbacks do, especially when you're playing against the best teams in the league in the highest stakes moments. So I don't blame Lamar Jackson for those postseason collapses any more than anyone might have blamed Peyton Manning for his almost like a decade of playoff failures before he finally started winning against Rex Grossman. So, like, I don't care about any of the Lamar narratives other than the degree to which, like, I find it annoying. I certainly don't respect any of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it, I think it was always overblown. I think that people extrapolated too much from like the 2019 number one seed, getting punched in the face and bullied by the Titans, and they just sort of decided that he's a choker from that game and that game alone. And I think if you look at the game plan against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago, that was completely on Monken. I thought last year, Lamar Jackson drove the guys down the field, scored a touchdown to put the Ravens in position to win that game in Buffalo, and Mark Andrews just couldn't hang on to the ball. So like I always found like those were a bit unfounded as well. But I think that the overall theme of the Ravens getting tight and just kind of making the wrong mistake at the wrong time, it is a bit of just sort of I put that blame at John Harbaugh's feet a little bit. And, I think that, again, ultimately, like when you have this cumulative scar tissue of painful endings to the season, I think that it's time to just go in and clear out that scar tissue and start anew. I think that there's been a lot of examples in football history. I think for me, if you go to the college level, like, a lot of people were hemming and hawing when Georgia got rid of Mark Richt, because Mark Richt had made Georgia a respectable football program again, and he was routinely winning 10 games a season, but never actually like competing for championships. So I think eventually, like, and I said this in my thread, good isn't enough when greatness is the expectation. And I think that, everyone thought that the Ravens were the Super Bowl favorite coming into this year, and they certainly did not play remotely close to that. I think you have good points on the way that the defense collapsed and with the way that the roster is constructed. I think DaCosta is definitely several cuts below Ozzie Newsome. I think you look at the offensive line, some of their planning on that. You brought up Aeneas Peebles for defense. I think Emory Jones being like the savior for the interior of the offensive line, and then he's out basically in the entire season. That the time he does get to play, replacing Voorhees on Sunday night, he actually is like the only guy blocking somebody on one of those Lamar Jackson touchdown passes. So there's a lot more rot to this roster than I think a lot of people anticipated. I think they got thin or old or both at a lot of spots all at once, and it just kind of created this perfect storm. So
Linderbaum's good. Rosengarten might be okay, but like, look at how many years they went with just crossing their fingers with Ronnie Stanley at left tackle. Granted, the last 2 years he's been relatively healthy, I suppose, but
yeah,
just another example of like, if this team had been building around Lamar Jackson, and if they had taken like the good Harbaugh approach in a situation like that, is let's get Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, and instead they were sort of just like, he only played 7 games last year, but let's see how Ronnie does. Because if Ronnie plays the whole year, then these other guys don't even need to be that good. See how this kind of reasoning can go terribly wrong, and they did it every single year, and they were like, well, why didn't it work?
Yeah, and I don't know why they let Kevin Zeitler out. I mean, they had a great offensive line in 2023, And then, obviously, like they weren't going to keep the whole thing intact, but and Rosengarten had a great rookie year, but the guard play in particular has
This is
been
not Marshall
abysmal.
Yanda, like where's the vision? How did we lose the vision when it was right in front of us just a second ago?
I know, crazy. Like he was there for Lamar Jackson's first MVP season, and they're it's like, well, he's been such a key part to the Ravens' offensive line success for a decade or so, and then it's like they forgot that guard play is actually important, and if you have weak links there, they are going to get exposed. So all of this to say that Baltimore is now looking for a new coach, and I'm like we alluded to, Harbaugh won't have to wait long if he wants to coach again next year. He'll have some suitors. I don't really know what Baltimore's going to do, though. I mean, the list of
Anthony Weaver, maybe.
I mean, former Raven Anthony Weaver, who was on that coaching staff in 2023. Obviously, the results weren't great in Miami, but I don't think he had much in the way of ingredients to cook with, really. I'd be interested in that. Brian Flores is a name that I'm interested in as well. Davis Webb.
Talking to him.
Davis Webb has been bandied about
really?
as
that Davis Webb. He's not a backup quarterback, right? And he's not Jim Sorgiang it for some quarterback in the.
No, he's younger than us. I mean, he's 30, and he's quarterback coach. He's okay, literally 30.
I was worried that my brain was like especially weak this morning, and that I was like, oh, Davis Webb, anywhere from 30 to 45 years. Him being 30 at least vindicates my initial old man like reaction of like, it was a couple days ago is why I wasn't thinking of him.
So let's see. Yeah, was he the reason why Baker Mayfield went to Oklahoma? Like Cliff Kingsbury chose Webb over him. I forget the exact order.
That is what happened. That is what happened. Baker was a true freshman at Texas Tech and like played half of that year with Davis Webb, who was a 4 or 5 star or something, and then Davis Webb eventually transferred. Even though Baker went to Oklahoma, Davis Webb still had to transfer to California.
Yeah, I wanted some of the Jeff Tedford scenes out in Cal. And anyway, we're unraveling here, but basically that would be a very unusual hire if they were to get a 30-year-old quarterback.
That would be
coach.
The youngest ever. Wasn't McVay at least like 32 or something?
Something, man. So, I mean, it would be unconventional. That's the word I was searching for.
I don't like that idea. I don't want Davis Webb to be the hire.
And I don't want for Baltimore to like fetishize the idea of going unconventional as the only way. And to be fair, the convention of just getting like the latest wunderkind offensive coordinator who really just is the guy that's standing there while the quarterback is making all this stuff happen. Like we see that fail all the time, but it was like a 1 in a million shot that the special teams coordinator from the Eagles was going to do this for 18 years also.
Well, to go back and be a little bit, to be fair to John Harbaugh a little bit, he still was a good game manager type of coach. Like as much as I called him a game manager coach, back when they only had to game manage, he was perfectly sufficient. And lately they've needed more and he was insufficient. So there's nothing wrong with like the Harbaugh, era, the experience or whatever, but he stepped into an organization that was probably the most stable, the most solvent in the entire NFL. And Ozzie Newsome was like this great, protector of like everything underneath it and made it easy for everybody there to succeed. And right now it's like it got harder to succeed. I think if Weaver, Flores, they would make sense. As far as the offensive genre goes, Davis Webb, in my opinion, is definitely going way too far in the direction of like the whole, like, we got to find the next McVay, we got to find the next Shanahan or whatever. Like, that's not the way to do it. At the very least, you need these people to demonstrate something first. And, Shanahan was always good. Everybody was like, oh yeah, he's going to be a head coach. And that was way before he was a head coach. Clint Kubiak, in my opinion, is clearly the guy among the offensive candidates who's actually worth pursuing. And not to say there isn't another. I don't know who all the quarterbacks, coaches, and passing game coordinators in the NFL might be, but Clint Kubiak has been so dominant, and in my opinion, including with the Saints,
Yeah.
that I just think it's like open and shut. Like it is not over like Cliff Kingsbury by miles and miles for me. Like if I saw Cliff Kingsbury getting mentioned a little bit with the Ravens, like that make me sick. Like Clint Kubiak, otherwise Weaver or Flores.
Yeah, I think I'd be, the defense needs more immediate help. So a defensive coach that can command the locker room would make sense to me, and then just go get the best offensive coordinator that you can to kind of maximize what they've got. They got one more year, Derrick Henry. They got to make it count, and obviously Lamar Jackson's still in his prime.
They should stop wasting his time too. It's a sin, and I'm glad they fired Harbaugh. I'm hopeful they make the right hire, and I make no attempt to hide that I want the Ravens with Lamar and Henry to win a Super Bowl next year.
Please, God. But that's going to do it. I mean, we could go all day with these coaching vacancies and the carousel. We'll touch on more of it as more of these jobs get filled and everything like that, and the playoffs progress, and we have fewer games to talk about. But we got an agenda to stick to here, Mario. So next up, we're going to be talking about some DraftKings playoff best ball. There's still time to get in there before the playoffs kick off this coming Saturday. Here's some notes from DraftKings.
The NFL postseason is almost here, and playoff best ball on DraftKings is back. It's your home for playoff best ball, and this year it's bigger than ever because our partners at DraftKings are featuring a massive $3 million prize pool and a $1 million top prize in DraftKings' largest contest to date. Are you new to playoff best ball? Well, it's the easiest way to get involved in the playoff action without the weekly grind. Just draft once, and that's it. Each round, your top scores automatically count. That means no roster moves, no weekly management. Just build your squad and let it ride all postseason long. All you have to do is download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app and draft your playoff best ball lineup for a shot at the $1 million top prize. Drafts stay open until the postseason kicks off, so now's the time to jump in. You draft it, we crown it. So sign up now using the link in the episode description below to take your shot at $1 million in DraftKings' biggest playoff best ball contest ever. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-97-777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at DraftKings.com. Sponsored by DraftKings.
Welcome back in. This segment is presented by our friends over at DraftKings. We are going to be talking some DraftKings playoff best ball. As you'll notice, if you're following us on the old live stream or on video, we've got the DraftKings playoff best ball rankings up. So Mario, we'll just we'll start at the top. We'll talk some kind of general strategy and what's going on. Like how does playoff best ball function, and then get into some kind of specific players and like team stacks that and values that we might want to target, or maybe some guys that we're fading as well. But you and I have both written articles on this subject matter over the last couple of weeks. I'll start by saying that my general thesis, and it's not really mine, it's conventional wisdom at this point. So playoff best ball, you have to be the best team each single week within your pod, right? To advance. And you have to advance 3 times to get to the Super Bowl. How do you win the overall? Well, you have to have enough players in the Super Bowl to at least be close to having a full lineup, and then just the chips fall where they may. I think I might have used the example last week. Like if you loaded up on Chiefs and Eagles last year, great for you. Hopefully you had the Eagles side of that, and if you did, in particular like Jalen Hurts and those guys, like you were probably sitting pretty as far as the overall goes. But bottom line is you need to have enough juice to make it to the Super Bowl, but you have to have enough ammo once you get to the Super Bowl to actually place high in that final round. So with that in mind, I think it makes your roster build an interesting exercise. I think that now that you only have one team on a bye from each conference, I think that it creates a dynamic where you have more teams that are playing this weekend that you can envision making it all the way to Super Bowl Sunday. And of course, like if you did want to go heavy on, say, the Seahawks or go heavy on the Broncos, that's all well and good. But you have to bear in mind that you need to have a team that's good enough in wild card weekend to even get to those players.
Yeah, as you said, in these tournament formats where these are 6-team drafts, I believe, so you need to place first out of your 6-team league in the wild card round before you move on to a more combined pool for your next round. I can't remember how many people are in each pod until that. I want to say it might be like 6 each time, but
I think so.
yeah. So, like you said, you do need that the Super Bowl fourth week scoring to win the tournament, to cash in the tournament. But you also need the wild card round and divisional round, championship round scoring to advance in each week in question. So you do need to have a somewhat coherent idea of which teams' advancing interests are at odds with which other teams. So especially obvious if you're picking too many teams for one conference or something. But if you're sold on the idea that the Texans are going to make it to the Super Bowl, you want to go with a Texans type of stack. Totally reasonable in my opinion, by the way. There's a lot of different approaches that are reasonable and interesting. The key is more like you have to commit to them, and you need to have among your collection of picks, I think there's 12.
Yes,
I believe
12 rounds. You start 6 players. There's only one running back and one tight end and one flex, 2 receivers and a quarterback is your lineup.
Yeah, so you got to map it out at least a little bit. I wouldn't go crazy trying to like overly speculate on micro details of which teams will beat which, but if you have teams that are playing basically in every round, then that's kind of like a start. And in the case, going back to the Houston example, it's like if you're sold on the Texans, then maybe don't go so heavy on whatever Patriots or whatever other thing. The key to advancing and placing at the end of the tournament is to sort of conceive a premise, a story about how the playoffs will go, and then commit to that vision. So you don't, as tempting as it is, if you go into the second round after taking Nico Collins or something in the first, and if you see I don't know who a good example would be, but some player
someone on the Steelers or on the Broncos,
yeah, something like that. Yes, if RJ Harvey's there in the second, that's actually a good pick. In any case, you don't want to go too overboard chasing what seems like value to you at the time, because that sense of value that you normally calibrate doesn't apply here. Like the value is having a lot of players who are that are still playing in the round in question, and you can't really get to the sufficient number by hedging your bets. Like I don't know what a good number of teams to select from would be, but I can't imagine it's much more than 4 or so. And you would want you want probably 2 primary stacks, in my opinion, like at least one that's a Super Bowl theory one, and therefore like a bye week team. But I'd probably, in a year that's so horizontally oriented in the hierarchy, the wild card teams are, especially like the really strong defense wild card teams. So it's the Texans, the Jaguars, even, I guess. Those are interesting teams to me, and they might play. If one of them makes it to the Super Bowl, they're straight up amazing pick in the wild card round. So you want to have it both ways a little bit, early scoring and late scoring, but you need to commit to some wild card round team to some extent in your build, and then at least one other Super Bowl oriented team in your build. And you want to have the discipline to stick with those teams and not chase what seems like good values with some of these other picks, because they'll probably prove somewhat inconsequential. And worse yet, if you kind of correctly identify the 1 or 2 teams that make it to the Super Bowl, but you don't stack with the full faith, and you kind of just get like a couple straggling bullets at the end there, that might not be enough to cash, despite having correctly foreseen the 3 weeks prior.
Yeah, it's like I got some Rams and they made the Super Bowl, but my Rams options for Super Bowl Sunday, I've got Colby Parkinson and Xavier Smith We'll see how this goes. Like the teams that are going to be winning on Super Bowl Sunday have a full lineup or close to it with the right mix of pieces in there. So stacking, one team from each conference, I think is paramount. What do you do? I mean, I don't know if you've endeavored to get much in the way of either of the bye week teams, either a lot of Seattle for a build or a lot of Denver for a build. But if you were, how would you kind of go about rounding out the rest of your roster, making sure that you have enough scoring through that wild card weekend to make sure that you can get to a point where you're actually deploying all your Seattle players or all your Denver players? Like, do you think that there's utility in maybe target, because there is a price depression on teams that are expected to lose this weekend? I think, the Steelers and the Panthers primarily, for example. Like, is there any utility in your mind for saying, like, hey, like Ted McMillan in the 7th round, sure, he's only going to play one game, but if it's good enough, that's fine?
Yeah. So when I was trying to think about what the good number of teams to select from would be, and I sort of maybe 4. It's to leave room for those McMillan type cases, basically the cases where you need those wild card round points, and it's outside of one of your stacking targets, and the price is cheap enough that it becomes that the loss of stacking utility is offset or overruled by the advancing utility of having that player. And yeah, McMillan might only play that one game, but if one of your 12 bullets does a lot to get you to that second round, and all these guys come off the bye week, it's at least a sort of sequence where you can rationalize the short-term cost, or sorry, I guess it would be like a long-term cost, but short-term security, and under the specific plan, strategy of having all these other reinforcements show up at the point where you lose the one part.
Right. So that's my one thought. If you're leveraging heavy on either of these teams that are on a bye, you want to make sure. And sometimes the market will give you opportunities to kind of load out your roster, but with teams that you can feel confident are going to advance. But by that same token, like there is a lower, like if you were just straight up ranking these players, like Ted McMillan would be going, much higher. Like if this was just a season long with this particular player pool, like McMillan would not be going, I feel like he would not be going behind AJ Barner, for example, So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. You mentioned Houston up at the top, and I think that they're a really interesting team. I still have some drafts to do and some exposure to get on Houston, because I have a betting ticket on Houston winning the AFC. Like I'm very much of the belief that they can do that. But are there any like kind of sneaky stacks that you feel like the market is giving you right now? I feel like the Texans are chief among them. But are there any other teams that, with the way that the ADP sets up, you're able to kind of go ahead and maybe grab some primo pieces that maybe you wouldn't have expected?
Yeah, so I know it's fun to also do like a one-off lottery ticket kind of thing with these types of contests where you're like, well, I know it's a long shot, but who cares? It's just, it's just for fun. And that's totally reasonable. But if you're trying to really target a cashing outcome, you might want to resign to picking multiple, I don't know how many teams, but multiple teams, because each of these stack scenarios that we're talking about, or a number of these stack scenarios that we're talking about, are justifiable in almost exactly equal extent. Like there's no projection based way to determine the right approach. It's sort of just, if you stick to the right framework with each collection of players in question, it all could work a certain way. If luck, which we can't do anything about, luck is a huge part of it, and the only way to really manage luck is to kind of take multiple shots at this thing. And if you want to take shots with the Rams, it's going to be expensive. Like Puka Nacua is first in the DraftKings ADP on this contest. The 8th and 9th, Devontae Adams and Matt Stafford are also Rams. So that's 3 Rams players in the first 9 picks, and I believe no other team in the first 9 picks has a second player. It's all one player from various teams. So the Rams are very expensive. If you have the first or second pick, maybe therefore you plan on going with Puka Nacua just because you know that you won't be able to pick him later at a later spot. And if you're picking multiple teams, it's like, well, this can be the Puka Nacua team. This can be the Rams stack. But you'll have to go back to back on it, and you might not even get the chance. Like, I guess you'll probably get the chance to, but I can imagine some drafts where it's like the 5th or the 6th team takes Devontae or Stafford or something and kind of screws up your stack. So those kinds of things can happen. But the Rams are by far the most expensive. The Texans, by contrast, are really cheap, which is why I think in addition to just like the on its face case for the Texans, the additional reason to like them is that they're just so cheap, and you can get Nico Collins, who when we were just talking earlier, I was like, he's probably a first rounder. It's not the case. Maybe sometimes he goes in the top 6 picks, but he's 12th in the ADP right now. So that's behind Kyron Williams, by the way, who's a 4th Ram at the 11th. So 4 Rams in the first 11 picks. You could do a Rams stack and pay all the according high prices that it takes to get those guys, and still get Nico Collins on your team and go with a Houston stack. And if the Super Bowl is Rams Texans, then you're looking really good.
I've found myself getting a lot of or trying to do a lot of Rams Jaguars or Rams Patriots. I feel like that's been something that's rather attainable.
The Jags intrigue me, but they're at the expense of our Texans. But yeah, I feel like one of those two, they're just like screaming values to me.
Yeah. So in the case of the Jaguars, ETN's the first one that comes off the board. Trevor Lawrence a little bit further down the board, like early 4th round. Then you've got Jacoby Myers, who I think is a really, really nice value, and Brenton Strange, like all the way down in like the 7th round. I think it is someone to consider as well. So Jaguars definitely attainable, and the Patriots one is interesting too, because you get Drake May. Say you use your first pick of the 2nd round on him. You can turn around and get Trevion Henderson, and then because of the Diggs stuff, it feels like the market has obviously cooled on him just a little bit, but I don't know if anything's actually going to happen to him during the postseason. Hunter Henry to me feels like a really nice play. And then if you're rounding out your roster, like say like you pepper Patriots to start your draft, what's nice is you can kind of wait for later on to grab some more. Like I think the Kayshon Boutte is a really interesting guy that you can get with one of your last 2 picks. He also wrote something awesome on Players Tribune that everyone should go check out, because he was close to not playing football anymore, and now he's on the Patriots and he's doing really good. So good for him. I like Charbonnet a lot. I mean, as far as now, I'm just kind of naming some guys, but like,
John, one thing to do before your draft is look at this DraftKings ADP and go further down the list than you initially planned on. Because if you assume the top 50 has everybody pertinent, especially to when you're at the second phase of your planning and you're like, where are my like deep stack picks, my Jackson Hawses for my Josh Allen stacks, those really. The players that you wouldn't have any interest in picking if not for the stack dictating it in the first place, you'll want to find out where they are in the order, because to your teams, once you commit to these stacks, some of these players who are in the 110s or whatever become actually really, really good, coherent, values for you, even though they're not going to be coveted picks. Like they're basically slipping in the ADP because other people are chasing their own respective stacks. And it's not for these secondary players, this ADP is not a good measure of their actual kind of like value, be it standalone or part of a stack.
Yeah, because the rest of the room is going to be drafting to their own needs, and therefore, like if you already have a couple of Rams, like they're not really going to be like the relative price is going to get pushed down on that. So like a Terrence Ferguson, for example, for the Rams, if you have Stafford and Devontae Adams, or Stafford and Kyron Williams, like I feel like he's an interesting one. Or I wanted to believe in one of Mumfield's Xavier Smith or Tutu, but I think with Devontae being back, like the story I tell myself is like the time for those guys was against the Falcons a couple weeks ago. It's probably not going to be during a deep playoff run unless Adams is to like aggravate that hamstring, something like that. But I think we've covered a lot of ground here. I think that the people now have a good little primer on the ADP, the guys you can target, the attainable stacks, that type of thing. So again, please go check out DraftKings. They've got best ball tournaments going at all different price points. We've been doing the $3 million not entry, $3 million contest with $1 million paid out to the top prize. That one's a $20 one, but they've got $3 ones. They've got all sorts of stuff for your interest. So go check out DraftKings. We're going to go ahead and move on. We've got a message from our friends over at Playoff Blitz. So this is a different dealio than, say, DraftKings, but of this same ilk. All right, so check this out. If you're like us and you hate when your fantasy season ends before the real football gets good, you've got to try PlayoffBlitz.com. It's fantasy football built for the NFL playoffs. No draft, no waivers, no sweat. Members just pick a lineup each week from the playoff teams. You can only use each player once. So once you start a player, you lose them. That's where the strategy kicks in. Remember, no need to hold a draft. Just create a league and invite your friends. Starting a league is super easy. It takes less than a minute, and you're all in from wildcard weekend to the Super Bowl. PlayoffBlitz.com is your home for fantasy playoff football. Leagues are $79. You can invite as many people as you like. Run an office pool. Invite league mates from your regular season leagues or even your grandma's bingo league. Join today at PlayoffBlitz.com, where fantasy football meets the Super Bowl. Enter promo code ROTOWIRE for a discount on your league today. Mario, I see you replying to our guy James, but this is a good question. I think for people before we go ahead and dig in further on this slate of playoff games. James is going to be drafting in a 12-team playoff league tonight. That's deep for a playoff league.
It is. You're gonna have lean scoring in a lot of the for a lot of the teams.
10-man teams, no bench. So obviously stacking probably going to be difficult for him. Other than keying on the Super Bowl predictions, how would you draft?
Yeah, honestly, I wish I could have more time to look at James's league parameters and everything, because it's kind of hard for me to visualize the way this particular format might unfold. But and also because it's not a DFS tournament, like a DFS tournament, you have to place generally very exceedingly high in a large group, or sometimes large group, but exceedingly high generally just to advance. So I don't know if James's format has like you need to win in the wild card round to be eligible in the division, or if it's more like these are 12 teams and we're all just counting up our points at the end of the playoffs. So if it's the second thing, you don't need to worry about the timing of your points as long as you get your points. And therefore it would be more reasonable in James's format to chase like wild card round points with no regard for whether you're going to have Super Bowl round scoring, because if you do enough damage in that first week, you don't need Super Bowl points, stuff like that. So I guess, I don't know, this might be the wrong answer, but I guess with this kind of format, you would need a little bit more varied, a little bit more breadth oriented of an approach than like this DraftKings best ball. Because this DraftKings best ball, there's no utility in breadth. You're just hurting your chances of advancing and placing in the cashing rounds. But if in James's formats, maybe it's good to have your investments hedged a little bit. Like maybe it's good to take appetizer servings of various offenses instead of going just head first into them.
Instead of the full tomahawk steak version of a team's given offense. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And if you can identify maybe an underdog this weekend with you can kind of do a more like best player available approach,
that's like early rounds, I guess, in that kind of format where you're drafting in a full pool or whatever, that best player available can maybe be the first thing. And then you sort of narrow your approach depending on where your initial steps lead you.
So I think, like the game theory element of like knowing your room, knowing your league parameters and everything, where you kind of come into this knowing that stacking is going to be really difficult. Just knowing that and kind of steering into the skid, and maybe some of your other league mates are not going to be as attuned to that and are going to be chasing stacks. Like, I think that could open up a nice little pocket of value for you as your draft unfolds. But James, oftentimes listener and commenter, so good to hear from you, James, and good question there. And I think it definitely probably helps some of our other listeners that are doing playoff leagues outside of the best ball sphere this season. All right, 50-minute preamble is up. Let's talk about these games, Mario. What do you say?
I don't know. It's a horizontal. Again, it's like a horizontal hierarchy we have this year. There's not much true have not dynamic. So all these teams need to worry about winning. I guess not the Rams; they should be okay, but be a little concerned. Rams, just don't take it too lightly.
Yeah, no pick sixes this time around.
Yeah, definitely not. But otherwise, even the Patriots, I think, need to be careful. I know 3.5 points is not a lot. It's not as if they're heavily favored. But I think the public sentiment is sort of just like, yeah, the Patriots, they're, it's Drake May time. And it is Drake May time, but it's also potentially Justin Herbert time. It could be a lot of different times. And when you're talking about a defense like the Chargers, which is both stingy from scrimmage and extremely opportunistic in terms of turnovers, like that's the kind of team where maybe you should beat them. Maybe the Patriots should beat the Chargers, but should doesn't take you very far in these kinds of moments. Like, you really need to be on your game, because the Chargers, Minter's defense gets just one turnover off of May with that could be kind of enough to put the Patriots in a spot that they haven't been in very much this year at the worst time to be there. So don't get me wrong. I'm probably still picking the Patriots, but it's a landscape I look at and I'm just like, I have no idea what's going to happen here.
Yeah, with the Patriots, to your point there, public sentiment is definitely heavy on the Patriots. I think that everyone sees Drake May and the way that the Patriots have ascended this year, and them being at home. And you look at the Chargers and how they're just sort of the walking wounded. And that's how we get to looking at DraftKings Sportsbook. 66% of the spread bets are on the Patriots and 79% are on the money line. Public, when they get so heavy on one side, things can go a little bit haywire, of course. So, but that's just kind of a general thing to note when you're doing your sports betting. We'll start at the top, though. We'll go chronologically, looking through these games here. Rams Panthers, like you stated, this one seems like the most sure thing on the board. We've got the Rams 10.5 point favorites and an over under of 46.5.
Right. So we mentioned that Matt Stafford needs to avoid the turnovers. This is not just a general, strategic point, as it were. It's a very specific, you did this wrong last time, don't do it like last time kind of point in this case. And I still can't remember the way his name goes for sure, but I still also believe Evero Ejiro is actually one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. I see Panthers fans hate him, and it's like, guys, have you seen who plays for your team? Do you have any idea what you're doing? Like,
it's a miracle that you're here.
Yeah. So Ejiro Evero, he can cause confusion for quarterbacks, even without a pass rush, even without good corners. He needs a little luck, because it's that and his wits is about all he has going for him, managing the Panthers defense. But he does have those two things. And the last time, those two things got the better of Stafford to an extent that was not it's not like tenable. You can't have that stuff happening in the playoffs. So generally, I expect the luck aspect to wear out at Evero Ejiro's expense here, and Stafford to more so take his customary place, which is as a constantly productive quarterback. The Stafford that the Panthers saw last time, they're not likely to get here. But that is their key to winning. If the Panthers can get Stafford to turn it over 2 times, the Panthers sit on the ball when they get it. Turnovers against the Panthers can come at a high cost, because it's kind of their only way to get an edge on you in the first place, and they're careful to protect it if they get it. Like, they don't try to air it out. They're not like, oh, we got a 3-point lead, let's open it up. They're like, no, we have a 3-point lead. Let's bring the game to a stop. Let's
park the bus.
we have the chance. Yeah.
So that therein lies, a really interesting dynamic. Like if you do turn it over against the Panthers with the way that they can run the ball and the way that they operate offensively, you might not get the ball again for several minutes of game time. So that is something to consider on the Rams side of the equation. As far as injuries are concerned, Kevin Dotson was not practicing on Wednesday.
That's
Jordan
big.
Whittington, yes, that one is actually important. Terrence Ferguson, my guy, I need him. He did not practice on Wednesday either. Their game, of course, on Saturday, Tyler Higbee limited as well. So I've kind of noticed Colby Parkinson being like the pick du jour of the Rams tight ends right now in those best ball drafts. Not a whole lot to report on the Panthers side. It looks like they should come into this game pretty healthy, all things considered, Mario. And of course, Devontae Adams looks like he'll be back in action for this one. So all told, what's your prediction here?
I'll go Rams. I mean, the 10.5 points seems like a lot. I think if Bryce Young has to throw the ball, if so we were talking about how the Panthers try to sit on the ball and play keep away when they get any lead. They still might end up in a situation where they have to throw the ball, that they don't want to end up there. But if Stafford is sharp, that might be what happens anyway, especially in the second half. And if it gets to that point where Bryce Young doesn't have the shelter of the run game to hide him, then it can unravel. And then it's like, oh, well, now the Rams can win by 21. It's like if they get Young into that, if they get him into the field where he can't hide, it can kind of just go wrong indefinitely for the Panthers. But I don't know. I think the Panthers will run the ball at least the first half constantly, and they prefer to go the 4 quarters. The Rams are not exactly truly pass happy themselves. So I feel like there could be a lot of running in the game that might make it hard for the Rams to cover.
I think so too. We actually have 61% of the bets coming in on the Panthers to cover that giant spread of 10.5 points, which almost makes me think Occam's razor, like maybe the Rams do just blow them out. But
if Young has to throw it 30 times, the Rams, like every pass Young throws over the number 20 ups the chances of the Rams covering, I think is the deal.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty apt way of putting it. Carolina obviously has been great coming off of losses this year. I think they're 8-0 against the spread after a straight up loss, but that was the regular season. This is the playoffs, a little bit different. So that this is where a trend could certainly bite you. I'm going with the Rams to cover this one. I don't have a take on the total necessarily. However, let's move on over to the Saturday night game, round 3, Packers and Bears, with the Packers kind of settling in as a 1-point favorite here on the road as Caleb Williams gets ready for his first playoff start.
Yeah, I think Caleb, this is a thing I've been saying for weeks now. I think Caleb still pretty clearly is not a finished product, but similarly, clearly, I think he's been working towards something productive. Like I think he's, at the very least this year, the sack percentage went down quite a bit in a way that I don't think you can just attribute to the offensive line improving. Like I think Caleb he's trained himself to not indulge some of the things that got him into his worst pass rush situations in the past. And it was probably hard on Williams because it's like that's probably where some of the trickery comes from. Like the shenanigans. You can't pull the shenanigans unless you're kind of taking too long and messing around with things that you're not supposed to. And Williams has stopped doing that and is forcing himself. He's forcing himself to play within that framework, and it'll eventually make him a better player, the player that the Bears more or less wanted him to be. But I don't know if this point in time is a fair expectation for Williams to get there. And if he's not there for this game, the Bears could win with this formula, but we know it's pretty much just DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monungai plus, a couple timely trick plays. Maybe that's kind of the best you can muster with a quarterback who can't scale up efficiently over like 25 passes or so. Jordan Love is not exactly infallible on the other side, but I do think he's a little more figured out, like as in Love knows his fit in the game a little bit better, and he's a little more comfortable with it than Caleb Williams is on the other side. Like Caleb's struggling through the noise. Love, I think, is settled in by contrast, and I also think, well, the Bears are a good team, and I definitely don't mean to make it sound like I have any confidence in the Packers winning exactly. I do think the Packers are the better team right now, like if only because the Packers are not in a rebuild. The Bears, they're ahead of schedule in it, but they knew they had to rebuild, and there's still parts of the Bears roster that you can point at and say, like, yeah, we could definitely do better here. We can't right now, but eventually. The Packers are already at the part in their management of the team where they're at the eventually. They're trying to make a serious run, and they put assets in place accordingly. And I think Josh Jacobs can have a big game here, so I don't need Jordan Love to do that much. But generally, the way I feel is I'll take Josh Jacobs over the duo of Monangai and Swift, even though I like both of those guys. I just think this is like a Jacobs bat signal kind of game.
Yeah.
And if Love is benefiting from really good downs and distances, then it will only make him more effective too. So I'm going with the Packers, although I guess my concern with them is always the special teams, especially the kicking, but all of it really.
Yeah, no, the special teams seems to bite the Packers at the worst possible times.
It's a LaFleur trademark. He's like the unspecial teams guy. It's an incredible bit, but he should stop. He should really start caring about special teams more.
It's a phase of the game, but I'm worried that the Packers are a little bit too banged up on defense to make like a
Fair
deep
enough.
run. But I think that they absolutely can win this game. The public is all over the Packers. 71% of the spread is spread.
Well, that's reason to doubt what I just said. Then, honestly,
see, and I think your Josh Jacobs bat signal thing is completely apt here. Going to be a little bit well rested coming into this one. And how do the Bears win a lot of the times? Like, obviously, like I think we're at a point where we can trust that their offense is going to be able to move the ball. But the thing that kind of pushes them over the edge and has gotten them to the 2 seed is turning the opponent over. And I think a strong commitment to Josh Jacobs in the ground game against this Bears run defense, I think that's the ticket for the Packers to kind of go in there, keep the Bears offense off the sideline, less exposure to the Packers defense, and also limiting the Bears' ability to make splash plays with their defense.
Yeah, definitely. The Bears have been very good at it. I didn't mention it before, but Ben Johnson, I think, has been pretty convincing. It's early. There are still ways it could go wrong, but I can't imagine what the guy could have done more to prove himself this year. It's at this point, I'm pretty comfortable assuming Ben Johnson is a better head coach than Matt LaFleur, or at least will be very soon. Part of that is I'm not as high on LaFleur as I used to be, but yeah, it's a tough matchup. I guess I just see the Bears' dependency on luck to be greater than the Packers, and the Bears kind of, if they keep being smart, if they keep being strategically smart like Ben Johnson has been, and if they keep focusing on like the really important small details in games, they can be dangerous. Even they can make themselves more available to good luck than some other teams. It's like they're always pursuing the right track, even if they can't quite get there. I just feel like when the scenario is, as you were saying, like Josh Jacobs sort of both gaining yardage and denying the Bears the chance of the turnover part of their winning formula, the Bears are at that point forced to come up with an offsetting production on offense. And I think it has to be that Caleb Williams throws more. And I just don't think that he's quite there yet.
This is going to be a big measuring stick for where Caleb Williams is and what this season has meant. I think he's taken a lot of strides forward, but I think you're probably correct in saying that he's far from a finished product. And I think Saturday round 3 against the Packers is a really good proving ground for him. Before we move on over to Sunday's action, we do have a message from our friends over at Dabble. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. We also got a message from our friends at Blue Wire. And look at that. we're on to Sunday. I cannot wait for Sunday. This game in particular, Bills-Jags. Depending on where you look, the Jags are either a 1.5 point favorite or a 1.5 point underdog at home against Josh Allen and Buffalo.
Yeah, very weird scenario we're looking at here. If you told us in the preseason the Jaguars are going to play the Bills in the playoffs, you'd probably have assumed it was the other way around in terms of the location, right? Like you'd have, or you might have even assumed something like, wow, I guess the Jags just kind of rolled all year because clearly the Bills are in the championship round or something. And
yeah, or at least like like
Chiefs.
Yeah, like I if you told me this matchup, I would have said, oh, the Jags are just cannon fodder for the Bills when the Bills are coming off the bye as the 1 seed.
Totally, and it could still be a game where the Bills kind of just thrash the Jaguars, I guess, but it would have to require a lot of overachieving from Josh Allen. And of course, we're already putting his baseline pretty high. So he would have to have like 4 touchdowns or something, which he could. Or Trevor Lawrence would have to go bozo mode after seeming like it seemed like he retired the bozo suit. It seemed like seems like he tearfully placed it in its whatever you store a suit like that in, and he
clown car.
It up and he placed it in the trunk in the clown car and it drove off. And he's moving on. Maybe not though. I mean, I guess he could have a bozo game here. I just don't. There is a risk. I mean, it's not an easy matchup for Trevor Lawrence. In my opinion, Sean McDermott is clearly a very good defensive coach. I know people have kind of gotten bored and irritated with him over the years, but whatever else might end up being true about Sean McDermott, he's a very good defensive coach. He's a top apprentice of Jim Johnson with the Eagles. There's a lot that McDermott can do to make life hard on a quarterback, but if Lawrence is becoming the player he was supposed to be, then the defense also at that point would need to have a general fear of Lawrence. Like this isn't just he needs to watch out for them. They need to watch out for him if he's going to keep playing like he has. And the running threat, I don't know why it took this long for Jacksonville to entertain it. And maybe defenses are going to adjust to it enough that it won't be such a blindsiding big play threat the way it's been the past few weeks. But Trevor Lawrence can run like the wind. Like people don't know this, but he's probably like a low 4.5 guy or something, and he can really run. It's not just like, the pocket containment failed and Trevor Lawrence snuck out again for some yardage. Like, no, he can outrun your safeties. So utilizing that threat more in the second half this year and Trevor kind of breaking out at the same time might not be a coincidence. And it might not be easy to stop indefinitely either. So I wish the Jags, as always, had more of like a true power option in the ground game. Big Travis Etienne fan, but I want him to be like my kill shot guy if possible. I don't want him to have to carry us into scoring range. I want him to just more so just get long range shots. But he's getting it done lately. He certainly has the temperament to be a volume power runner. It's more like his build that I worry about with Etienne. He can kind of get the worst of some shots sometimes. But the Bills' run defense has been bad at its best all year, and at its lowest points, it's been just sort of like, what are you guys even doing?
Yeah.
So Travis Etienne should project fine against a defense like that. I do worry about the Bills sort of selling out against the run to sort of just like, selling out against the run so that they can kind of blitz Trevor Lawrence in a 3rd and long. But I don't know. I turnovers, they should be able to kind of win this game. But then when I say that out loud, it like feels wrong, because it seems like the Bills should just kind of have this. The reason I guess I would be the reason I might not grant the Bills the same deference as in the past is that mainly Josh Allen doesn't have nearly as much help. The pass catchers, he doesn't have nearly as much help. His offensive line, the run game, basically infallible. Like Josh Allen cannot have more help there than he does. But if you're like me, when you recall if you try to think of peak Josh Allen with Buffalo, you're very specifically thinking of that Stephon Diggs, John Brown offense, which is almost the opposite of the current one in terms of the wide receiver personnel. It's like those guys were torching, and Josh Allen put up huge passing numbers that year. the last 2 years they've had to scale down the run game more and more. Last year because they cut Diggs, and then this year because Keon Coleman is doing whatever it is that he's doing instead of
Unclear.
playing football. So they just don't have. How is Josh Allen going to stay to his past playoff standards when he's throwing to Tyrell Shavers this time? I mean, he could. It would be pretty crazy, I guess.
Yeah, I come down to, like, Josh Allen to me is like the most impactful player in football. Like when he's on, when he puts on the cape, like there's just no stopping him, even with like the relative lack of weaponry around him in the passing game. And I just wonder if like the Bills have just, it's much harder to do in football than say like basketball, where you have load management and like you just need to get to the playoffs and then you flip your switch. Like that's much harder to do in football. And obviously like he he's dealing with that foot thing in week 17. So we'll see if he's, at 100% for that. But I think he's going to have a terrific game, like kind of one of those memorable Josh Allen games. And it's really, to me, a matter of like, how do the Jags respond? Because they've been just running so hot here down the stretch. They've won 8 consecutive games with some impressive wins. They do have the defense.
I know you know that. It's just I think Josh Allen as a runner can do the cape thing, right?
Yeah.
As a passer, I don't know how is Gabe Davis going to have the Kansas City game here. Is that because that's almost what we would need to happen
in Jacksonville of all places?
Yeah, I guess it could happen, and there's no Diggs. It's got to be Gabe Davis. So maybe there's something about playoff Gabe that just is inevitable, and there's nothing the Jags can do to protect themselves now. But I don't know. As a passer, that's what it would take for Allen to have production in this game on the level of past playoff appearances, I think.
There's just some instances where like Allen gets out of structure and he's just drifting back to his right, and like he throws it so hard that the receiver just can't drop it, or he throws just such a good dime that there's nothing that can be done. You have to like defensively catch the ball for a touchdown. So like he's going to need to do that kind of stuff. Like, and I don't know, we haven't mentioned James Cook much. Like, how do you feel like he can kind of take some of the pressure off and keep the Bills offense on schedule here?
Yeah, I'm kind of assuming at least decent game from Cook, maybe a quite good one. I think as much as you said, Josh Allen, he doesn't need like structured by design play calls to work out as a passer. If the play comes down to the quarterback must run around for 15 seconds and then throw it 60 yards to Tyrell Shavers in some corner of the field, then that's just what it'll come down to. But it still would be preferable, I think, for the Bills to have sort of a steady, bankable kind of presence, which Cook has very much given them. However, man, I got to say, part of my concern about not concern, I don't care for them, but part of my kind of new doubts about the Bills offense for this particular playoff run are actually informed a little bit by how much they're overworking James Cook. Like, in my opinion, they're clearly overworking him, and I don't expect him to be able to play at this level forever. The more they lean on him, he keeps coming through, but a 190-pound back getting worked like Christian McCaffrey or something is not normally a good policy. Like, even as far as 205-pound backs go, McCaffrey is such a unlikely anomaly in his case. You don't want to make plans for anyone else based on it. And Cook getting 20 between the tackles carries per game comes at a cost, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just kind of ends up looking a little slower in the playoffs, but probably not in this game. And at the very least, the Bills' offensive line has to be the best in the league at run blocking. I have to imagine it's not all that close either. So Cook should be able to keep going, even though it's a tough Jacksonville run defense. The question lately for the Bills has not been the run game. It's been a given. Yeah, Cook will produce. It's more like, and Allen as a runner will produce. It's more like, does the passing game get off the ground? And that's the part that I don't know as much, but I guess if Cook has a big enough game and if Allen does a lot running, they might not need to throw the ball that much. So it might not be an issue if Cook keeps producing like he has been.
So let's fire it off, man. What's our prediction?
I guess I'll take the Bills. I don't really know how or why. but I guess that's the best I can give you.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that as well. The market's totally split. I mean, basically 50-50, whether it's the money line or the spread in this game. The market can't make up its mind. I think there's really great cases to make for both of these teams, not only winning this game, but making deep runs in these playoffs. But
Yeah.
the fact that we have this good of a matchup this weekend is just delightful. What a way to start our Sunday. We also forgot to give our predictions for the Packers Bears. What do you got?
Sorry, for Packers Bears.
Yeah, who's winning?
Packers.
I got the Packers too. You talked me into it. I'm there. Let's move on. We've got the Eagles and the Niners, a rematch of the 2022 season NFC Championship game where Brock Purdy got hurt and Josh Johnson got hurt, and things went real sideways for the 49ers. The Eagles, just to me, they feel like this inconvenient truth. Like I don't enjoy watching them whatsoever. And I think the offense is really, really kind of teetering on the brink of disaster. But I think the defense is good enough, and the fact that they're so experienced. Not that the Niners aren't, but I feel like the Eagles are going to win this game. I am a little bit surprised that they're favored by as much as they are, but I think a lot of that is informed by the fact that the 49ers are really banged up.
Yeah. Excuse me. We don't know if Trent Williams is going to play, do we? So that's a big concern. Man, I also don't really know how. Yeah, I don't. He hasn't been practicing, so it's looking not great at best. Excuse me. I think the 5.5 points being kind of surprising is also one of those moments where it should be seen as we know that we have good reason to believe that the Eagles are basically the better team, and there's a lot working against the 49ers right now. So, 5.5 points, that's enough points where it's one side's a pretty clear favorite, and it's there's not that much argument to be had about it. I think the problem with the 49ers is, as you said, the Eagles' defense, more or less. The 49ers' defense, I think, might be able to overachieve long enough to keep Jalen Hurts from getting to good Jalen. Like that. There's not generally that many passes by the Eagles' offense, and when Hurts is going cold, it can just kill them. Yeah. I think the 49ers can get that Jalen to show up for a little while, but the more chances that Hurts gets to throw the ball, eventually the reality that you can't just cover A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith forever will eventually pop up, and eventually there will be a throw that Jalen Hurts needs to make that any quarterback in NFL history could make. And as the defense, especially when you're as beat up as the 49ers, there's not that much you can do about it. So I see the 49ers defense capable of holding serve for some amount of time, but probably not forever. And if the Eagles defense is tough enough on the 49ers offense that the 49ers defense never really gets that relief, then eventually they'll just kind of get washed away, I think, in the second half. But the reason I worry for the 49ers offense is, the Pearsall injury, the Kittle injury, and even aside from that, so much of the offense depends on McCaffrey and the ground presence in general. And with Jalen Carter back, the Eagles are a really tough run defense again. And with the corner duo that they have, Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, they can kind of they can kind of sell out against the run with impunity, because those, at least not against Juwan Jennings and Demarcus Robinson, is Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean going to lose. So unless those types of guys step up to offset slack resulting from McCaffrey being limited from scrimmage, it just kind of looks like punting at that point to me. I guess unless Brock Purdy runs for the difference, which I don't exactly expect. So I don't doubt Kyle Shanahan will have a great game plan, but what he's working with, the tools that he has at the moment are just not that great, in my opinion.
I think that the public perception of the Niners has swung so much in these last two games. Like we had that amazing Sunday night game and the back and forth game against the Bears. Then you had last weekend where the offense couldn't get out of its own way for the entire duration of that game against the Seahawks. So it's just like, which one is going to show up? And I do think that, this Philly defense is enough to kind of just throw the Niners offense off balance. And then I just don't think that the Niners defense holds up over the course of 60 minutes. So I think I'm expecting an ugly win here for the Eagles. And
low scoring.
Yeah, very low scoring. Let's see. What's the total in this one? It
44
is 44 and a half. I could see the under coming in on this one. I don't know if I'm going to touch Eagles 4.5 or 5.5, but I think the under and the Eagles winning would be the way that I go with this one. If the Niners do get past the Eagles, I think that they're definitely lively in the NFC to make a bit of a run here. But I think that the Eagles are kind of like a uniquely difficult matchup for this iteration.
Defense in the playoffs, and like you said, I mean, if you can't isolate Adoree Jackson as the third corner with a really good receiver, there's no easy yardage in the Eagles defense anywhere.
No, there's really not. Or unfortunately, my guy Keely Ringo, also a bit of a liability for the Eagles secondary, but alas. Next game, we got two more. We've got the Chargers and the Patriots capping off Sunday with the Sunday night football game. We've got the Patriots checking in as 3.5-point favorites.
Yeah, so as we were talking about before, it seems like the public tone on this is almost an assumption that the Patriots will win and maybe even make a Super Bowl run. It's in a horizontal hierarchical year. It's understandable why the Patriots would seem like such a tempting Super Bowl pick. Drake May is the real deal. There's nothing misleading there. Drake May is what he appears to be. That defense is good. I still think there's ways to hurt them in the pass game for big damage. And not that it would be easy for Herbert to get enough. It might be more impossible for Herbert to get enough time to make those kinds of throws here. I do think, though, that Herbert is capable of the borderline impossible at times. And I still assume Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. But if someone were to argue that Justin Herbert were the second best, I wouldn't push back on. I don't have a particular opinion on it. I just mean, like, I really hold Herbert in high regard. And I think even though May could pretty soon be in that same category himself, he's not there yet. And it's not fair to expect a player like May to win consistently in the playoffs when it's his first time being there. So I'm picking the Patriots to win this game, but it's not with a great deal of confidence. If Drake May stumbles a little bit, I think it would be insane for people to criticize him for it. Like, this Chargers defense is arguably the best coached in the entire league, and they're opportunistic. They're confusing. They hit really hard. There's ways that the Patriots offense can have things go wrong. And there's ways for Herbert, of course, to do big damage, be it as a downfield passer or as a runner or whatever else. So I think it's a dangerous spot for the Patriots. And if it weren't in Foxborough, I'd be maybe actually concerned for them.
Yeah, I just worry that the Chargers are just too banged up. Like, it's just
totally.
It's hard to see. We were just
talking about fully healthy. I'd be picking them.
Yeah, no doubt. But I think even Omarion Hampton not practicing on Wednesday, so even if he does play, you're not positive that he's going to be at full go. Obviously, as we've talked about all year, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater not being available, those tackles are just not. It just the Eagles were like a uniquely bad matchup for them, and they still found a way to win a few weeks back. So maybe there is something like that with the Herbert magic, but he's
good
probably
Harbaugh,
not even.
too.
Yeah,
you guys the Ravens got stuck with the Waluigi of the two.
Wow. So I like the Patriots to win this one in a close game. I think it. So yeah. I will take the Chargers to cover the 3.5. I think it's a field goal game.
Yeah, and Dicker, I know he had a couple misses lately. I would bet on him not missing any more going forward. So I wouldn't want to have to pick the Patriots either to win or to cover, but I guess I'll take them to win but not cover.
Okay, so we're aligned there with the Patriots winning by 3 points or fewer. Rounding us out, we've got the Texans hitting the road, going to Pittsburgh, Monday Night Football. The Steelers have not lost on Monday Night Football at home in God knows how long. But the Texans are 3-point favorites here.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin is still great. As much as I blame a lot of Baltimore's failures on John Harbaugh, part of the specific way it went wrong for the Ravens was having to deal with a Tomlin team in a situation that they did, high stakes situation. If the Tomlin team in question has so much as like 75% as much talent as your team does, you need to consider yourself in danger. So I think that certainly applies to the Texans here, given the way their offensive line can just matador pass rushers directly into CJ Stroud's face. Against a team like the Steelers, that could become, Cam Hayward was kind of playing like he was on berserker serum.
Yes, he was going nuts.
Yeah, he was acting like an actual crazy person. So if he can somehow maintain that level of truly unhinged aggression, that could come at a high cost for the Texans. The Texans offensive line, as it has been this whole year, does not have any way of dealing with the Hayward of the other day. They don't have a prayer of it. So I worry about that kind of stuff, introducing, tipped passes, blindside hits on Stroud to cause turnovers that he otherwise might not be. He otherwise might not be liable to surrender. He might, in this setting, be at some risk of that, especially since it's in Pittsburgh. But I'm still taking the Texans to win, because as much as Tomlin can beat you when his team has 75% as much talent as yours, I also think the Aaron Rodgers offense is basically a joke. I know he got the better of the Ravens, but I think the Ravens defense is a joke. So to me, the reasoning is consistent that Aaron Rodgers can still look like just terrible, especially if defenses start popping Gainwell on these checkdowns. I mean, where are these? Kyle Hamilton was just that play over and over against the Steelers, and it's like, you aren't covering anyone. Go hit that guy. They're going to throw it to him. 10 times already. Go hit him. And instead they're just sitting back like, oh, dang it. I had to give up 8 yards over and over, even though there's no one else on this side of the field running a route. I hate that. I don't think DeMeco Ryans is this likely to leave those kinds of things open for the Steelers. And if Rodgers gets put at a point of slight discomfort, it kind of all comes apart for him. So I just can't imagine how that guy is going to get very far with the way he's playing. Even his guys, anytime some play goes wrong, anytime Rodgers throws a pass and it isn't completed, he's just berating people. I've never seen a quarterback behave like this, especially when they're, he should have some grace as an older person by now, but instead he's just becoming more bitter and impatient. And other than Kenny Gainwell, I can't imagine how anyone on that team likes him. So I think I'm obviously reading into things quite a bit. I don't mean to sound like I have any certainty on this. The Steelers could win, but I feel like the peripheral details more so point toward the Texans being on the attack here, and the Steelers more so being the hunted and needing to turn to little tricks and things to kind of get out of harm's way. Whereas I don't know. I just at the very least, I don't know how Rodgers I'm assuming the run game won't be very good for the Steelers. And I don't know how Rodgers without a run game, even with DK Metcalf back, I don't know how they're going to deal with, potentially 3rd and 9 and worse, because if you try to throw the ball on 1st or 2nd down, there might be some sacks in there. And not just Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, although certainly them foremost. I keep talking about Danico Autry. Watch out for him.
Yeah. I mean, this Texans defense is why I believe in them as a, real Super Bowl contender, but their offense does give me some pause in picking against a favorite going into picking a favorite going into Pittsburgh when the Steelers are the underdog always gives me the creeps just a little bit. How's the Texans kicking situation?
Oh, Fairbairn's one of the best. He might be something like the 3rd or 4th best kicker.
He's going to be important.
Oswald might be the 2nd best.
Yeah, and his missed extra point was actually blocked or tipped on Sunday night, so it wasn't him just biffing it. So
holy crap! I didn't know Fairbairn kicked 48 field goals this year. I had no idea that he did that.
That's-
Yeah, you'll notice if Fairbairn has big volume, really high accuracy, and a lot of these kicks are from long range too. So he might be right there with Boswell actually.
So he's going to be important in this game. I do have a feeling on that one, and I swear it's not all just tethered to my Tyler Loop disdain at present moment. But I'm worried about the Texans offense, but I think the defense is good enough to get them over the hump here. And I think, the whiplash effect of going from being shorthanded and moving the ball at will against Baltimore versus having DK Metcalf back and going 3 and out constantly, that's gonna put the Steelers defense in a weird spot. And I think that additionally, like I think the Steelers offense is being out of rhythm, that could create some mistakes that go beyond just a 3 and out type of thing. And the Texans could start to really, kind of impose their will, as we've seen them do several times this year. I mean, the Chiefs game, the Bills game, the list goes on as far as the Texans defense just kind of carrying them. So if we see a little spark out of the Texans offense, great. But I think the defense rules the day on Monday Night Football. So give me the Texans to win this one. I'm not touching the spread. I think I am going to take the under as well, though. I think this one is like, it's 39.5. Give me like a 20-17 Texans win, I think is where I'm landing.
Yeah, all defensive points.
Yeah.
It's just going to be Tagai or Togiai.
Togiai.
He's the God, I can't remember the MVP pick in the single game slates. Tommy Tagai.
It was so close to being like a bad beat of epic proportions if his touchdown at the last second on Sunday actually swung the spread. But I think the Texans still had like
I just assumed it
half.
did. I didn't even look at what it was. I was just like, oh, that is just funny.
It was close. It was like I had to do the mental math quickly, and I was like, oh nope, that's still only 8 points, not a 9.5 or whatever it was against Indianapolis. But that's going to wrap it up for a veritable cornucopia of football talk here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, again presented by our friends over at DraftKings. Best of luck to everyone on their playoff best ball interests. If you want to check out some of our playoff content, of course, you can check out rotowire.com. You can get 15% off any subscription. Just go to rotowire.com. Use that code YouTube15. Bada bing, bada boom. You got 15% off. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.